Okay, whenever you're ready.
Okay, let's do we have the presentation with the screen that says it, the meeting details? Cool. Thank you. Are we on? Good to go. Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone to the December 3rd, 2020 San Mateo County Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. Jenna will give us some details for our public participants, and then we will jump into the agenda.
Perfect, thank you. For those attending the meeting on the Zoom video conference, we will use the raised hand feature in order to organize any public comments. During the general public comment period and for each item on the regular agenda, I will ask those members of the public who wish to comment to click the raised hand feature to raise your hand and to speak on an item on the agenda. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. Please note that members of the public must wait for my prompt in connection with each agenda item before using the raised hand function. For example, you cannot raise your hand at the beginning of the meeting for an agenda item that is later in the meeting. When you hear your name called, I will prompt you to unmute your account and begin speaking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I realize I jumped into that without officially calling the meeting to order. So I'll call this meeting to order. Thank you. We begin with agenda item 1, the Pledge of Allegiance, for which we have a slide. Thank you. So I will kick us off. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
and
one
to the
nation,
republic which is stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 2, we have roll call.
Commissioner Mariles,
Here.
Commissioner Okello, Commissioner Mena,
Present.
Chair Green.
Present. That is everyone. Agenda item 3, public comment. This is an item for persons wishing to address the commission on any parks related matters not otherwise on this meeting agenda. As with all public comments, speakers are customarily limited to 2 minutes. Do we have anyone? And as Jenna instructed, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom to indicate you would like to give a comment.
Chair Green, there's nobody with their hand raised for this item.
Okay, thank you. So public comment on agenda item 3 is closed. Item 4, action to set the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move we set the agenda.
Second?
second,
Okay, second. I think we do a roll call on Zoom just to make it extra clear for our transparency. So Janet, would you mind calling a roll call for that?
Sure. Commissioner Mariles,
Yes.
Commissioner Okello. I don't think I can hear him. Commissioner Mane. Chair Green.
Yes. So Commissioner Okello, are you able to unmute yourself to?
Let's see.
Yeah, I said yeah.
Wonderful, thank you.
Hmm.
And Sam, I didn't hear yours. I think that was a yes, but we have 3 regardless, so I think we can move forward. Thank you. Agenda item 5, the Parks Foundation Executive Director's Report. I am finally not going to confuse this with Nicholas's item. Michelle, it only took me the whole year.
yes.
Good afternoon, commissioners, parks staff.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, now we can. Thank you. Thank you, Sam.
All right. So good afternoon, commissioners, park staff, and guests. Michelle Beasley, Executive Director with the San Mateo County Parks Foundation. Happy to be here virtually with all of you. Just a couple quick updates. The foundation is happy to be partnering on contributing funding for a regional ad campaign on responsible recreation.
Right, I'm on mute. I think we have some background noise, maybe from a secondary device over at Commissioner Manna. So just want to make sure folks can hear. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. So yeah, we are happy to be partnering with the Parks Department to contribute funding on a regional ad campaign on responsible recreation, which is going to be very important these next couple of months. And it's in partnership with a bunch of regional open space organizations, and funding goes towards producing the video and script development. So looking forward to see that get pushed out. And then the Parks Foundation this fall invited volunteer groups and park rangers to submit applications for small projects in the parks. So we will be reviewing that in partnership with Parks Department staff next week, and we'll be releasing that money in January. So we're excited about that. And I just wanted to say how excited we are to see the flood park plan move forward after many years of planning. So super excited for the next phase in that. And I just want to wish everyone a happy and safe holiday season. I have a feeling that with our really nice weather, we're going to have a lot of people going out into the parks. And then just putting it out there that it's really great when park visitors give park rangers a hand and pack their trash out. I think we've been seeing this across the whole country in terms of litter really going up. So just a little public appeal that everyone do their part to take out what they brought into the park and help keep the parks clean. So that's my quick update, and happy to answer any questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Michelle? Seeing no movement. I just had a couple about the materials you're producing. Will they be produced in languages other than English? Like, have you thought about that at all?
That is a good question for Carla, and I'm not sure. I think it is, yeah, because I think Telemundo is one of the ad buys. So definitely in Spanish, and I'm happy to let someone else chime in a bit more with that information. But yeah, definitely in Spanish, I believe.
Yes, that's correct. It's a pretty extensive media buy to cover all of the communities in the Bay Area, including Telemundo.
Cool. And there's an interesting article in the LA Times just about like messaging to the Latino community specifically. I'm happy to pass that along. I just read it this morning, but you know, just like some challenges specific there, and obviously like so important for everyone's health.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. That is it for me. Any last thoughts? I see none. Okay. Moving on from item 5 to item 6, the Parks Director's Report.
You might want to
Nicholas.
comment on that just for dotting your I's and crossing your T's.
Sure. Wait, say that again.
I just wanted to make sure you called for public comment on this agenda.
Is just a discussion item, but I am happy to. So let us reopen item 5 and call for public comment on the Parks Foundation Executive Director's Report, item 5. Any comments in the queue?
Great. So just really briefly, if you have anything to say on this item, please press *9 if you're calling by phone. And right now I don't see any hands raised. Chair Green.
Okay. Thank you, guys. All right, so we'll close public comment on this item and then move to item 6, the Parks Director's Report. Nicholas.
Let's see, open that. Okay. So we're going to try a new format today. for the director's report, and it's a little bit more interactive than just a memo. We are going to provide a brief PowerPoint presentation. So next slide, please. So one of the exciting things that I get to announce is that we've opened picnic sites. So currently there are about 114 picnic sites open throughout the park system, and they're open primarily in Coyote Point, Flood Park, Friendship Park, San Bruno Mountain, Junipero Serra Park, San Pedro Valley, and QUARRY Park. And it was important for us to get our picnic sites open so that residents of the county had a safe place to congregate in accordance with health guidelines outside of their residences. Naturally, the news that Governor Newsom delivered today that has more strict guidelines, we are going through the paperwork at this time, and we're trying to understand what that means for us and for our sites. And if the new orders do not prohibit it, we'll have an internal discussion as to whether we're going to keep these open or not. But San Mateo County at this point, to the best of my knowledge, is not in one of those lockdowns, and therefore we'll have to assess.
Yes, sorry, I'll just say that's my understanding as well. It's tied to the hospital bed capacity now, and we're not.
That's right, and it's regionally based. So with that said, we are well aware that at any point in time we could drop into a 3-week shelter-in-place order, and we'll be ready if that happens. The department will be ready to act accordingly. And what it would likely mean at the beginning of the pandemic, you may recall that the department delivered to the commission its reopening plan, and we've currently been operating in phase 3 of the 4-phase plan. And likely what may happen is we just drop down from phase 3 to phase 2. But regardless of what the next steps are, we are prepared to take those on. And in that spirit, we were excited to announce that we've opened our playgrounds, but we once again are also, oh, sorry, Janet, next slide, please. We were really excited to announce that we reopened our playgrounds. We have 10 playgrounds open throughout our system at Flood Park, Friendship Park, Coyote Point, Junipero Serra, and QUARRY, and Hutter. But we're not sure what the next steps are for those as well. So we had Scott Lombardi, our superintendent, had developed a great plan for how we were going to reopen these to make sure that we were complying with state guidelines. And our parks, our playgrounds have been heavily used, but used in a very appropriate way. We have not been receiving negative feedback from the public on this, and they're happy to have these facilities open. So really excited to have had the opportunity to open these, and we're very hopeful we'll be able to keep them open. But once again, we'll have to see what documents the state released. Janet, next slide, please. Flood Park. Michelle Beasley from the foundation had mentioned this at the beginning, but Flood Park on November 10th was the landscape plan was adopted by the Board of Supervisors, and the EIR and errata were certified by the board. So moving into the next phase, which is the design phase of the project. And we plan on releasing the RFP for design services in January. January 11th is the date we're looking to release it. And that would allow us to enter the design phase late Q1 of 2021. And our anticipation is that design will take about a year. So we'd be breaking ground in 2022. Really excited about the possibilities that we have at Flood Park, and really excited that we'll be able to be meeting some of the regional need for play fields, but also being able to provide a playground, an all abilities playground, is something that we're really excited about. You may have seen in the newspaper, in the local paper, that Red Morton's playground had just opened, which was a Magical Bridge playground. And it was very well received. We're excited about the possibilities of doing something just like that here. But making sure that our parks are accessible to all people is something that is a priority for us. Janet, next slide, please. Quarry Park pump track. So this is something that got a lot of attention at the beginning of the year, and we had talked to the commission about it a little bit. And what you see before you are a series of design alternatives. So the department with its consultants developed 3 project alternatives, and based on the feedback we received at the public workshop held on November 4th, 94% of meeting participants who voted supported the Flying X pump track. I've been working with the coastside community for a very long time. Commissioner Merrilees can tell you this. I don't know of another time we've received 94% support on. And I think what that really means is that there's a strong desire for that facility. We left the surveys open for an extra 2 weeks, where we received about another 100 surveys, and online we received over 50% support for the Flying X pump track. So that's going to be the preferred design, and I'll come back and reference the pump track at the end of this presentation. But the next steps would be to enter into the design phase and secure the necessary permits. We are hopeful that we will be able to start construction in May. So moving really quickly on this, but have had a great opportunity to have community engagement around this. There's a lot of support and excitement around it. And we've been fortunate to have partners in the Granada Community Service District who have committed to providing hopefully up to $100,000 for construction. Janet, next slide, please. You will recall the off-leash dog recreation pilot program that we've been working on, and this was presented to the commission early in 2020. And what was determined after that was that we had to go through the, well, we knew we would always have to go through the CEQA process. What was determined after that was that we needed to do a mitigated neg deck. And so we've been working on that mitigated neg deck, or negative declaration, and that will be accompanied by an adaptive management plan. And so the adaptive management plan will incorporate parts of the evaluation criteria that were adopted by both the work group and the department, and it'll help guide the department's implementation and monitoring of the off-leash pilot program. Our goal is to have this initial study, mitigated neg deck, released to the public in early 2021 for a 30-day public review comment period. And really our goal is just to make sure we are identifying and mitigating any adverse environmental impacts that may occur as a result of the pilot program. And this will allow us just to make sure we're being responsible with our natural resources. Janet, next slide, please. One of the big capital projects that we've been talking about is the Memorial Park wastewater collection system. This has been headed by our capital project manager and ranger, Mario Nestari, and he's been doing a phenomenal job with it. The Board of Supervisors on November 10th executed or authorized an agreement with Express Plumbing to construct the new service, the new system. And what's really exciting about this new system is the way it's being constructed will allow us to better maintain it. We will have fewer areas where we can have root intrusion or breaks, and we're actually reducing the overall length of the collection system, which means less pipe to have to maintain. So overall, it's going to allow us to be more efficient and effective in our operations. And it's also going to allow us to dedicate more staff time to projects like fuel reduction, trail maintenance, and direct visitor services, which at Memorial Park is extremely important. Janet, the next slide, please. This is an early snapshot of one of the new restrooms and shower rooms at Memorial Park. And there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but this gives you just a idea as to what it's going to look like. And we at the department are extremely excited about this. New facilities out there for our campers, it's well overdue. And we've been very appreciative and fortunate that the board and the county manager have given us the financial resources necessary to do this. We have 7 restrooms and shower rooms that are being constructed right now. When this is done, we'll have about 7 more that we need to do. But this is a huge first step. And we, at the end of the day, have really our eyes on the prize, which is Memorial Day weekend, or July 4th, 2024, the 100-year anniversary of Memorial Park. So that's what we're working towards, and we will be ready to go when that comes. But really looking forward to welcoming back campers Memorial Day weekend of 2021, and people are already able to start making reservations for that weekend, and I believe it's sold out in extremely fast. So really excited about the possibilities there. Janet, next slide, please. So FEMA local hazard mitigation grant application, just a heads up to the commission, the department submitted 4 notices of interest to submit an eventual grant application to FEMA for funds to do fuel reduction projects at San Bruno Mountain, Unipro, Sarah Park, Quarry Park, and Edgewood. So these would be large scale projects. Each project, the projects range anywhere from $300,000 to $1.3 million. So a lot of work, but this is a direction that the department needs to be going in, and looking forward to hopefully securing some outside funding to get these big projects done. Janet, next slide, please. Gorse removal at San Bruno Mountain. One of the things that we've also been doing in the meantime is looking at other vegetation that we need to remove. Gorse is an extremely flammable vegetative species that is at San Bruno Mountain, and we early fire in a gorse patch. So we're working to eliminate it. It's also a non-native species. So eliminating it from a public safety perspective, but also from an ecological perspective is extremely important to the department. And the maintenance division did an amazing job cleaning that up and removing about 12 acres of gorse at San Bruno Mountain. Janet, next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. And the last is the Tunitas Creek Beach improvement project. I don't want to show too much information here because one of the asks I'll have today is for a special meeting in January for us to present 2 projects. One, I'd like to get the pump track we talked about earlier in front of you for adoption, but I really want to get the Tunitas Creek Beach improvement project in front of you for adoption. We've been working on this all year and have had great success in the public engagement process, and really excited to see the outcome, or I'm sorry, the input we've received from the public. And what you see here is just a snapshot of that. And you can see how we are laying out parking facilities and visitor amenities. And once again, I don't want to spend too much time on this because Mario Nastari, who's also managing this project, is going to have a great presentation for you in January. And that would also allow us to stay on schedule by having that meeting in January instead of waiting for February. And this is, as you undoubtedly know, is going to be one of the biggest projects that the department is going to undertake in recent years, and it's really going to be a huge draw for the department, given that it's going to be our first recreational coastal beach property. So really excited to roll this out to the commission, hopefully in January. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, fellow commissioners. Maybe I'll just go one by one so we don't have confusion. Commissioner O'Kella, do you have any questions for Nicholas? You are on mute. There we go. Nope.
So here we
There we go. Okay. And Commissioner Manna?
Hello, it's Freda.
Oh, hi.
Because I think there's an interplay here between the host and I in terms of unmuting or muting myself, so it creates a little confusion there. Mr. Calderon, there were some issues around parking at Flood Park. Is there any update on it? I think they're thinking about waiving the parking fees entirely. How's that working out?
Yes. So we, the Board of Supervisors authorized us to eliminate the vehicle entrance fee, and on the beginning of November, so about a month ago, we opened the parking lot for the first time since it was closed due to the pandemic. and we haven't had any issues. It's been wonderful. It's a more accessible park. People are being very respectful and responsible with how they're using the playgrounds, and so it is. You know, we knew at the time it was the right decision, and it's proving that it was the right thing to do. The board, you know, was really excited about it, as was the
Well,
commission.
that's great. I think that's great. The second question is on the wastewater collection system at Memorial Park.
Mhm.
Is a treatment of the waste going to happen on site or going to happen elsewhere? Is it a whole system, collection and treatment?
Yeah, Commissioner. So the Department of Public Works has just finished overseeing the construction of a new wastewater treatment plant that's on site. The collection system
Okay.
will tie into the treatment plant.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, and then we can try Commissioner Manna.
I wanted to ask Nicholas, hope all is well, and thanks for a great presentation. I recall just before Chair Green got to our great commission here, we had one meeting where we had roughly 100 or more guests, visitors, coaches, after school programs, and they were talking about the improvement of flood and just kind of where we are in that aspect of upgrading it to soccer fields and baseball fields, and you know, post pandemic, how are we going to expand? You know, obviously with pandemic COVID going on, you know, there's not, you know, much activity where the kids can play soccer and play baseball and softball and things like that. So is there sort of an exit plan on how flood is going to look like with the expansion of the new fields and the new improvement?
Yeah, Commissioner. And my service got a little spotty there, but I think I got the general sense of the question. So we fully anticipate that the design phase will take about 12 months, and construction will take another 12 months after that. And so we're talking about really the park opening in early 2023. And so, you know, I fully anticipate that we'll have control of this virus by that time, especially with talk of vaccines being rolled out, you know, this month. So I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. What we will have impacts on is the community engagement process during the design phase, and we'll likely have to hold a fully virtual community engagement process in the design. We have experience doing that during TUNITAS, and so we have a lot of great lessons learned, and I'm confident that we'll be able to incorporate the public's input. But I'm not concerned at this point in time that the virus, that the COVID-19 will have an impact on flood when it reopens.
And lastly, one more thing. I noticed that San Mateo County is using the Expo Center to sort of house or shelter or provide COVID tests. By some strange reason, would they entertain to Parks and Recs and say, hey, you know, we're running out of beds, we're running out of nursing facilities, is there possible that they do kind of an outdoor, you know, emergency type, you know what type of question I'm asking?
Yeah, Commissioner, at the beginning of the pandemic, the county had tried several techniques when it came to housing either patients who had contracted COVID-19 or members of the homeless community. And those included renting RVs and stationing them at the event center. It also included renting hotels. We are, I don't see us getting to the point where we would need to utilize parks for that purpose. With that said, we had offered that up at the beginning of the pandemic. And in fact, during the fire, we had a couple RVs staying in Coyote Point that were evacuees from the fire. So, parks as county assets and land are always available for emergency service. I'm just not sure that we.
Lastly, thank you for keeping the parks open. San Andreas Trail, I try to do it at least once a week. It's probably the most beautiful trail. And I can tell you, it's getting, gyms already have, reached that purple tier in San Mateo County is where we are. It's such a breath of fresh air to see San Andreas Trail starting in San Bruno and ending in Milgram. So I really appreciate that. It's such a beautiful, I wish we all commissioners can, one day get that way. And I mean, I see a lot of the, from time to time, the Rangers are there and, they recognize us and, myself, and if I'm with some family members or friends doing the trail, it's such a beautiful trail. It's clear now. There's no smoke anymore. So hats off to you guys for keeping the parks open.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I think that's just a great opportunity for me to make sure that the credit and the recognition goes to the staff. Our Rangers work hard every day to make sure our parks are welcoming, are accessible, are safe. Scott does an amazing job leading them, and Scott really deserves a lot of the credit for making sure that what needs to get done is getting done. So, I get to be the face of the department, but the credit really goes to the Rangers and our natural resource management staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mirrlees, anything for Nicholas? You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Can you unmute? You can do it.
Hey, you're right.
There it is. Good job.
How that happened. Yeah, Nicholas, in terms of opening up parks, your list there, what's happening with the Marine Reserve and Seal Cove? I keep getting asked questions about why those are closed. And when a lot of people come and are turned away.
Well, and the bluff trails are still open. The Pillar Point Bluff trails are still open. The reason the beach at FMR is closed is because what we know from other locations, throughout the pandemic is that when something opens, large crowds of people come to that location. And when you're tide pooling, you are not paying attention to things like, is your mask on? You're not paying attention to things like, are you maintaining social distance? And so we're concerned about the public safety risk that could be presented from welcoming everyone into such a small confined space. The other issue, as you know, is the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve has very sensitive resources, and not being able to control the crowds and how many people are there can actually do some serious damage ecologically. And the amount of time that it would take to recover from that is unknown. And so what we feel is that it's most important to protect that resource right now. It's most important not to create a public safety risk on our hands. And the reality is, like I said, our bluff top trails are open. Pillar Point Bluff is open. QUARRY's open. There's a lot of recreational resources, and there's a lot of recreational beaches open on the coast side that are not as sensitive as FMR. And so, true to our mission and core to our mission, we are sensitive to protecting that area.
Yeah, I mean, people come there, but they come there when there's no pandemic too. So yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, whatever. I don't want to second guess you. You may have to close down even more. I get asked that a lot. What's the deal with Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, and when can we get back?
And Commissioner, I want to be clear and make sure that this answer is as public as it possibly can be. I plan on opening Fitzgerald Marine Reserve when it is safe to do so. I just don't want to jump the gun and do something that's going to damage the resources there. I have no interest in closing FMR to the public permanently. This is something that has resulted as of the pandemic, and we're taking the appropriate action. We're taking the action that we think is appropriate, but I plan on reopening that. I know that there's people who are saying, well, the department's never going to reopen it and they're just trying to keep us out of there forever. That's not what we plan on doing. I want to be very public and clear about that. We will reopen FMR when we believe that we can do it in a safe and responsible manner.
Okay. The other issue is fuel reduction throughout the parks. That's going to get very expensive very quickly, depending on how much you want to do. Has the department thought about doing that in-house, developing some sort of in-house capability?
Commissioner, I would love to answer that question. Is there any way we can wait until the next agenda item, which covers that?
So you are thinking about it. But, okay, yeah, we can talk about it. Yeah.
But I will tell you, we are thinking about it. I will tell you, we as a department, I don't think a day goes by where we don't talk about it. In fact, we had a very productive meeting earlier today on this very issue. So we are thinking a lot about it.
Okay.
And please rest assured, Quarry Park is identified as a priority area that requires some work.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
Okay, thanks. I had a similar question, but can also wait. Regarding the Sam's comments about just like having the parks open, just want to second that. It's great to see the parks staying open. And I saw in the governor's guidance about like what it is you're supposed to do to keep yourself sane and safe during even the most restrictive shutdowns. It encouraged people to get outside, go to a park. So, you know, I'm glad we seem to be a long ways from where we started when we thought about kind of the role of the park and in public health with regard to this. So just thank you for making that possible here locally. For the Tunitas Creek project, I understand we'll do something in January, but are the scenarios that the public has been reviewing, does any of them include the housing option?
Yes.
Great, that's all. I can just take it as long as it's a yes, so that's fine. And then I look forward to seeing everything and I will not be really annoying in January.
Yeah, no, the answer is yes.
Great. And then for the pump track, so help me understand this one a little bit. I mean, we can hear it again, but my understanding or recollection is that this project happened after some residents took it upon themselves to make their own unannounced on park property. And then and we shut that down, but now we are building our own as a thank you for doing that. Like, I don't really understand.
Yeah.
I actually have a lot of reservations, and so it would be helpful to understand that now before we have the action item before us in January.
Yeah, absolutely. So the pump track was always something that was going to get built. This was not something that came out of the blue. The department has been working on the Quarry Park master plan for several years now. And ironically, two of the most important issues that were identified in the master plan were a pump track and off-leash dog recreation, or dog recreation in general, I should say. Both of those have been removed from the master plan and have been kind of fast-tracked. The master plan is still in process. The master plan will still come before the commission. We simply just started on these two components of it in an unusual way, which is usually we would finish the master plan and then start the project. Because of several factors, those two were kind of put on their own track. So this isn't, it's not like it's not that
did the fast, I got you, did the fast tracking of the pump track happen before or after someone built their own?
It happened after.
Okay. So I just want to say, I want to understand.
Yeah.
So I think as part of the January item, if that's going to come, I would like for the department to address how they intend to discourage other communities who might want a thing faster from pursuing that expedition through building on county land without authorization. So that's all. We don't need to like get into it today, but I think that should be part of how we feel comfortable with this project, is understanding that the way to get what you want is not to just build it yourself and then make, you know what I'm saying? That's not comfortable to me. So
Absolutely.
thanks. That is it for me on this item. And I mean, it's great. It's great that, I mean, it's obviously like a community need, just to be clear, like it seems wonderful. It seems like a wonderful recreational opportunity. It's just that part of the process is very uncomfortable. So just, I want to do what we can to make sure that things proceed more equitably in the future. Okie dokie. Public comment on agenda item 6, the Parks Director's report.
Hi, thank you. And I do see one hand raised for this item. I'm now going to call on Carlisle and Young. Just give me a second while I bring up the timer. Carlisle, can you hear us?
Yeah, I didn't know where to unmute, but I saw it pop up. Thank you. I've got a lot of things to say, so I didn't know I'd be timed. First of all, this is really fast. Out in Quarry Park, those kids built that because we're in the unincorporated area and we have nothing. There is no community center. There's no recreational sports fields. We have nothing, and they never give us anything. I mean, I've been kind of griping for a community center for a long time, but we don't have one. So I was going to ask Nicholas, maybe I could get your phone number and call you later and talk to you about maybe working on a goal to find something for the kids, or and for if we had a community center, we wouldn't have to have our meetings in that damn Granada Sanitary District 3rd floor cramped room. Because when those Quarry Park pump track kids came to that meeting, it was so crowded you couldn't hear anything, you couldn't find a chair, and it was stinky in there. Anyway, that was just came up. I wasn't going to talk about that, but she brought up the thing is, why did they build it themselves? Because we have nothing. I live in Seal Cove, right between the Gene Lauer Trail and the Marine Reserve. I'm sorry that the beach is closed, but I'm glad, because I thought it was closed for the safety of the docents that have to guard the public from coming up too close to the seals on the beach. So I don't know if it's brightly mentioned in your parks website, but maybe you should, so people won't be disappointed for driving all the way out there and finding it only the upper trails are open. But I'm so happy it's there, and we live in a virtual garden of county parks. We have the Devil's Slide Trail, we have the Gene Lauer Trail, and the Seal Cove Marine Reserve, and of course Quarry Park. But I'm really excited about the Tunitas Creek Beach Park. I do have a concern. I mean, I wasn't in that last public meeting, whatever you call it. But my biggest concern, I think I mentioned it then, was about traffic. And with Quarry Park getting a pump track, I know people will be coming from there. And also
time. Thank you.
Have a little bit more time, please.
I'm sorry, we do it so that
How many
everyone
more
has the
public
same.
speakers do you have?
We just do it so that everybody has the same. Thank you very much for your remarks. And if you have further comments, you're welcome to
Wait, I'd like to get
email them.
Nicholas's phone number so I can call him.
My email is the same as it was when I was with Horsley's office, so you can just send me an email and we can connect.
Can you call me then? 650-728-9271.
I'll email you, okay?
Thank you. All right, any other public comment?
There is no more public comment for this item.
Wonderful, thank you. And public comment is closed. Moving to the regular agenda, item 7.1, the San Mateo County Parks Wildfire Fuel Management Program informational item. Nicholas?
Perfect. Jan, would you be able to pull that PowerPoint up, please?
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah, thank you.
Janet, is there a way to show it so my notes aren't there?
Hold on. Could you see it before too? I didn't know you could do that. Sorry.
No worries.
Hold on. Screen. I don't know if I know how to do that, Nicholas.
I think if you, right where you were, if you go to hide presenter view,
Let's see.
or if you go,
Hide presenter view or right here.
yeah, so I think it was 1 over maybe,
This one.
or I'm sorry, two over. You
This
had a
one?
little menu that popped up just now. Now let's see all slides.
Hide presenter view.
There it is.
Huh, I didn't know that either. All right.
There you go.
I'm gonna be a lot more comfortable sharing my own screen then. All right, well, thank you everyone. So today we're gonna be presenting on the department's fire fuel management strategy. Next slide, please. Actually, I think I got wrong one, but so wanted to first show a overview or a aerial view of the CZU lightning complex fire. And so this is the largest fire that has occurred in county history and was the first wildfire of the sort to occur in Parks Department history. Next slide, please. And you'll recall that I shared these photos in the past, but these are images of areas of our park that were impacted by the fire. Next slide, please. And so one of the things that's important when we talk about fuel reduction and wildfire management, fuel management, is that this is really a county-wide problem. And so I think there are certain parks that receive more attention than others, Quarry Park being one, San Bruno Mountain being one, Huddard and Wonderlick being some, but the reality is this is a county-wide issue. And so when we look at our parks, we have to think about all the communities that we're impacting. We have to think about all the parks that are being impacted, the different type of ecosystems. And that's something that I'd like to start off by reminding everyone, because it's important we consider that all county residents are impacted when there's a fire. Next slide, please. So the fuel management strategy is really 5 components. And the first step is identifying and prioritizing high value projects based on metrics. And so we're going to talk today about the metrics, but it's important that when we weigh these projects and we evaluate them, that we're looking at them through the right lenses, and we're considering the right components. The next part is planning for it. So methodically planning to treat and retreat areas is extremely important. And what that allows us to do is not just make sure that we have the right resources, but it also allows us to make sure that we're maintaining the areas that we're treating. So one of the things that I have discussed a lot, and you will always hear me talk about, is that when you treat something, you have to retreat it. Otherwise, it'll just grow back and you're back to square one. And so, today during one of our internal meetings, we were talking that when you do your first go through and treatment, that's a project. And then after that, you're doing maintenance, right? But if you don't do that maintenance, the next time you come back, you're doing a project again. The other thing this 5-year fuels management strategy allows us to do is budget appropriately, making sure that we're setting aside enough funds to either do the work ourselves or hire a contractor, but also make sure that we're being responsible in how we're using those funds. And then it also allows us to schedule. So when you treat an area with a tree species like eucalyptus, you have to plan to be back there, say 6 months or 12 months later to do additional retreatment. Whereas some of our other parks, you can treat and not come back for 3 years. So how are we using this plan to appropriately schedule the work we need to do? And then lastly is monitoring. It's really important to make sure that we are monitoring, to make sure we don't cause ecological damage to our parks, to make sure we don't, to make sure we don't have erosion issues, to make sure we're not allowing non-native species to grow back and outcompete with native species. So we have to be looking at all this. And so when you put this together, what we've done is we've come up with a ranking system where the metrics that I discussed later in this presentation are ranked for each project on a scale of 1 to 5. So when you look at a component of it, you will ask yourself, does it rank low as a 1 or high as a 5? Janet, next slide, please. So the first metric that we use is proximity to residential neighborhoods or structures. And at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we're creating defensible space between our parks and adjacent areas. And so we look at how are the parks situated and how close are residential areas. You'll see in these 3 pictures, which are just a snapshot, our parks typically abut up against residential areas. How do we make sure that we are maintaining defensible space so that in the case of a fire, 1, we can have space that can be free of fuel and hopefully slow the fire down, but we can also have space that fire and first responders can access to try and engage the fire. And so this is a really important component to all of our fuel management projects. Janet, next slide, please. The other one we want to think about is proximity to park infrastructure and facilities. So the photo on the right is the carriage house at Wonder Lake. Left, you see that we have Curiosity in Coyote Point. And so it's also important as we talk about defensible space between our parks and private residences that we're keeping this defensible space around our own facilities and infrastructure, whether that's buildings, ranger residences, visitor centers, wastewater treatment plants, whatever it may be. Janet, next slide, please. The next one is the wildland urban interface, or the WUI, and this is a mapping system that is used to identify where residential areas or development come up against wildland or rural areas. And so understanding those as more prone or risky areas. And so understanding where our parks fall in that, and making sure that we are using that as information to inform our decision-making. Next slide, please. This is a really important one as well, and that's CAL FIRE's Fire Hazard Severity Zone. And so this is a mapping system that CAL FIRE develops and puts out that looks at where are the greatest risks and threats in an area. And so they identify areas as high risk, medium risk, and essentially a low risk. And so what you can see here is, looking at this, I can tell you that we have several parks that are directly impacted by this, Wonder Lake, Edgewood, Quarry being the 3 main ones that I see. And so we want to make sure that we're utilizing industry experts and subject matter experts to inform our decision-making. So in this case, we're relying on CAL FIRE to inform our decision-making. Next slide, please. Vegetation type and density, what we know is that some vegetative types are more combustible, they're more flammable than others. And so understanding where we have those communities and where there's a greater risk because of that is something that we need to factor into our decision-making, because that's going to help inform maybe where a fire could essentially burn hotter or start to grow out of control. We also want to look at the density. So a lot of vegetation compacted with each other is more fuel to burn and increases the risk of a catastrophic wildfire. Janet, next slide, please. Longevity is an important one. We talked about, you heard me earlier talk about maintenance. And so the area, the photos above is from Quarry Park. And you can see on the right is after, the left is before. And what's important to really remember is if you don't maintain what's on the right, it'll go back to looking like what's on the left. And it's important that we set aside the resources to maintain it. And it's important that we're prepared to go back and retreat it. Quarry Park, what I can tell you when CAL FIRE did their project is we were back in there within 6 months treating that. And that's how fast eucalyptus grow back. And so we need to understand that certain vegetative communities are going to be more work to maintain, but we have to be prepared to do that work. And we have to have the resources to do that work as well. Next slide, please. Here's a different area, but same topic. The left is before, the right is after. And this is at Huddard Park. What I can tell you is we haven't had to touch this area yet, like we have Quarry. And this just really, this photo shows how different vegetative types grow back quicker and how certain ones require more maintenance. But it's important that we always want to maintain that area shown on the right, because that is the type of area, if there were a fire to come through here, it would stay on the ground, it would burn low and slow. It wouldn't likely get into the canopy because there's no fuels to get it there. And that's what we want to make sure we're maintaining is this space that keeps fire low and slow. Next slide, please. Another one that's really important, and I can't highlight this enough, is the ecological benefit. When you're scoping a project, it's important to consider this because you can scope a project to mitigate catastrophic wildfire risk, but also benefit the environment. And we at the Parks Department strive to scope our projects in a way that accomplish both these goals. And it's really important that we talk about that because our mission is to preserve our natural resources. And sometimes you can enhance and improve the ecological value of land by going in and doing work, as you see here. So the top image is essentially an unmanaged stand. And that's what a lot of our parks look like, where you just have a lot of trees hacked in with each other. And what that means is they're all competing for resources. What it means is some of them are not getting the sunlight, they're not getting the nutrients they need to grow. And as you thin it out, what that does is it allows some of your trees to grow bigger, and you can release those. And really redwoods in particular, you would allow them to reach that old growth size and structure. And that's what we want to be aware of is there a way that we can conduct fuel reduction while also improving the ecological value of a parkland? Janet, next slide, please. Some of the other metrics that I'm just going to run through really quickly include evacuation routes. We know that it's important to maintain ingress and egress. Talk about the slope or the aspect, how wind's going to blow in that area, what directions the fire going to move if it occurs in a certain area. The total acreage of a project, we have 16,000 acres in our parkland, and we need to start doing bigger projects. And so we want to reward projects that have that goal. We want to look at any legal requirements we may have. If we're partnering with someone like CAL FIRE or RCD or state parks to do a project, is funding available? And then what is our professional judgment? When we're on the ground and we're looking around and we're seeing this, what is, Scott, for example, what is his decades of experience tell him that we need to be looking at? And so we want to make sure that we're not leaving that out. Janet, next slide, please. So the next steps, we want to identify and prioritize our fuel management projects. Hannah Ormshaw, our natural resource manager, has developed an amazing spreadsheet that allows us to go through these metrics that we talked about and assign them points. And at the end, it'll rank the projects based on their point value. And that information is going to allow us to prioritize those projects. Based on that, we'll develop some project work plans that include information like the project scope. Are we going to do it internally, or are we going to contract it out? Do we need to use hand crews or heavy equipment, or both? So it's going to look at all of that. What is the cost and the schedule? We're going to bring that to the Board of Supervisors for consideration in January or February, and then we're going to get to work on those projects. The Board of Supervisors have been extremely generous with the department over the years in allowing us to upgrade our equipment, allowing us to upgrade everything we need, essentially. And so we're ready to get to work on some of those areas. So that's the presentation, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Let's start with questions from commissioners. Neil, you want to start? I know you had a question on this topic.
So do you have anything to add about talking about creating some sort of in-house capacity?
Yeah. And so Commissioner Merrily, are you referring to like a fuel reduction crew?
Yeah, I'm talking about bucket trucks and chainsaws and training and
Yeah. You know, as much as I enjoy talking about this, I'm going to turn this over to Scott, because Scott not only knows our equipment better, but really has put a lot of thought into this and has had a lot of great conversations with partners like CAL FIRE about how can we best be of assistance. But also Scott understands the training that Rangers receive. And I think one of the things I'll ask him to talk about is the fact that realistically, to a degree, all of our crews are fuel reduction crews, right? All of our Rangers know how to use the equipment and dedicate days throughout the year to doing that. But I'll let Scott go into more detail.
And Scott, if just as part of your answer to this same question, if you wouldn't mind, I had a similar question, but specific to the FEMA grants, like what is envisioned there, or if you didn't have to declare it yet in the NOI, that's also fine. Thank you.
Sure. So what I could speak to, Nicholas hit on a couple topics here about our current training of staff and our duties that we do day to day right now. And a lot has to do with hazard tree removal, fuel reduction. We have created some great partnerships with CAL FIRE. We've learned a lot here recently. We've had, Neil, you know, many years of support from the board as far as equipment that's been provided to our department that we use on a regular basis. What we're doing now is we're just going to look at a bigger scope. We're going to be looking at getting some bigger equipment for some masticating, for some maintenance that's going to have to occur. I think the explanation that Nicholas had about a project is a project when you first start it, then it becomes maintenance. And this all takes scheduling, and then we have to look at the bandwidth of what the department can actually do and also provide the services to the public. And when we start getting into the late spring, starting in summer, and our camping seasons go, our fuel reduction time gets cut back at that point. So we try to go to core days. We'll try to have maybe 2 days a week that we're working on something, and the maintenance crew would be going probably 8 to 10 months out of the year doing fuel reduction, mowing, etc., which is their normal tasks. So we're probably not going to be able to bring additional people on, but we're going to have to do the best we can with what we have and get some better equipment to help assist us, so we don't have to do so much hand. We're going to go mechanical on a lot of stuff. Heather, the answer on the FEMA grant might be more in Nicholas's wheelhouse, because he had provided the application on that, and I haven't been briefed on where we're actually at on that one there. And Commissioner Merrily, did that kind of clarify and answer your question?
Yeah, just as things go forward, I know how expensive trees are to maintain. You call Davy Tree and ask him to cut down a big cypress tree, and it could be, you know, $5,000 or $10,000.
Yeah.
And, the Parks Department has a lot of cypress trees and eucalyptus trees, and as things go forward and it becomes necessary to do more maintenance, it seems like it might be smart to go in that direction a little bit rather than to depend on outside contractors to do some of this work.
So you're absolutely right. It has to be sustainable. And that's why we're looking at this scoping and the ranking on these projects is what is our bandwidth? What can we actually happen if we had to maintain it ourselves? Because we all know that the funding will not always be there, but we need to do this in the best management way that we could for the department, so it is sustainable and that we don't bite off more than we can chew. Definitely.
Right on.
Yeah, and to build on that, Scott, thank you for taking that. And to build on that, you know, I think when we talk about some of the size projects that we are reviewing, we're likely going to have to use contractors for that project component of it, right? But our staff would be able to do the maintenance of it, right? And so we also have to look at opportunity cost, right? And not say that our staff isn't capable of doing the projects, but we have to look at opportunity cost, right? If they are spending all the time doing fuel reduction, they're not doing visitor engagement, they're not doing trail maintenance, we may not be getting to our playground inspection. So we always have to evaluate that as well. With regards to the FEMA, so the 4 projects, the scopes are similar in the sense that we want to create a 200-foot defensible space. So we want to, in some cases, remove all trees, mostly eucalyptus. And in some cases, we're just looking to leave the larger trees, and we want to take the smaller trees out, the ladder fuels, and really open that ground up. Earlier, I talked about if a fire comes through, how do you keep that fire on the ground so it's not going into the canopy? That's what we experienced down by Old Hall Road during the CZU fire, is that the fire was coming down and by and large was staying out of the canopy, was staying on the ground. How do we make sure that all of our parks have that situation, especially as they're coming towards a boundary with private residences?
Thank you. The question I guess I have with specifically to the grants is the notice of intent to apply typically includes a budget. And I just wonder if that budget assumes contractors.
I'm sorry. It assumes both, because the application is going to have to has to account for both how you're going to treat and maintain it a certain amount of time. So we're assuming that we'll do treatment with contractors, maintenance with our own crews.
Okay, cool. And just exactly on this topic, one more follow-up and then go back. Just we had talked, I think, a while back about the possibility of, so understand that like new positions are hard to come by, but something that we're seeing up in San Francisco anyway, is that though new positions are hard to come by, workforce development is more important than ever, especially like since we have an economic crisis going hand in hand with the public health crisis. And so understanding that ranger time is precious and they have many, many responsibilities, but like, is there any hope of kind of partnering with nonprofit workforce development, youth training type apprenticeship programs to get, all the co-benefits that would come from something like that in such important work?
Are you referring to specifically the fuel reduction?
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like a tremendous opportunity for like general labor that wouldn't necessarily require a college degree, wouldn't necessarily require advanced training. Many people need work. Like, we'd be a part of that.
There's a couple nonprofits that we've been in conversation with about working with who offer that type of service. So we are considering that and looking into the feasibility of that.
Great, thanks. Neil, did you have more questions on this topic?
Nope.
Okay. Commissioner Manna, any questions on fuel reduction? Unmute yourself, Sam.
Commissioner Mary Les pretty much, went through elaborative details, and I got most of my questions answered that way.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Okello.
I do have a couple of questions. I think we all agreed that climate change is happening. And a lot of the fires that we've experienced of late, there are probably going to be more of them. And so thinking long-term, we're going to have to, make some serious resource adjustments, and I totally agree with Neil, probably, expanding our staff to include, a unit that is dedicated to this kind of work is something that we may not be able to avoid. And if the county cannot come up with the requisite resources, then we certainly need to explore options. Working with nonprofits is definitely a strategy that we can utilize. But at the same time, I feel we really do need to develop a very strong partnership with cities, because some of these residents that we want to protect, from fires are located in cities. And so I think we have a pretty strong argument in getting the cities to partner with us, so that we can do the necessary work to prevent the kind of disasters that happen in Paradise. And so, but I think, as they say, if you want to get to the moon, then aim for the sun. I think we should indeed try to aim for the sun, because I think we need a dedicated unit that is going to do a lot of this preventive work, so that we don't have to experience the disasters that have happened, not only in our county, but in other counties across the state.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. What I think we could probably do is maybe go back and reanalyze what we looked at when we made the determination that we weren't going to create a dedicated crew, right? I mean, I think one of the things that's really important is we have to, I agree with you that we have to look long-term, right? And we have to look long-term at all of our obligations. So while fire is a huge obligation, so are, general maintenance of our parks and direct visitor services. And so we have to look at, once again, that opportunity cost. And in some cases, it may make sense to assign more rangers to reduction. And in other cases, it may make sense to hire a contractor to do it. So I think we just need to go through an analysis, but I'm happy for us to go back through that consideration process and see if financially it makes sense.
Thank you. No further questions from commissioners. We can open public comment on this item 7.1. Janet, do we have any commenters?
Hi, Chair Green, we do not.
Okay. Public comment is closed on this item. Moving on then to item 7.2. Oh, my agenda just shut. Terrible. There it is. Parks Equity Committee informational item. I just want to be mindful of the time because I know we have the two action items on the agenda are to follow. So just, time check for everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. So Catherine Wright, who is the department's interpretive ranger, will be presenting to you all today on the department's equity committee or team. And I really want to just take a quick moment to acknowledge Catherine. She has taken great initiative in bringing this to us and proposing it, and really encouraging us as a department to look at this and evaluate it and act on it. So Catherine deserves 100% of the credit for everything that you're about to see and all the great work that this department's going to do around equity.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Parks Commissioners, and thank you for having me present with you today. I'm Catherine. I'm a park ranger for San Mateo County Parks, and I supervise our small team that leads the interpretive program. I also manage all of our visitor count data, our sign shop, and assist with social media content for the department, amongst other duties. And today I'm here to talk to you about the Parks Equity Team. So 2 years ago, my coworker Laurel Finnegan presented the IDEA initiative to the Parks Commission. We created this initiative to demonstrate our department's commitment to inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility through these 5 strategies: outreach, events, environmental education, access, and staff. And each of these strategies has a goal and objectives to work towards those goals. The main focus of today's discussion will revolve around the staff strategy, although any work in this area is also going to be reflected in the other goals as well. The goal for this staff strategy is to develop a park staff that is culturally aware and represents the diversity of our county. Some of the objectives we thought of at the time to accomplish this goal were the following: diversity, equity, inclusion trainings for staff, bilingual pay for staff, bilingual interns for the interpretive program, among other positions. And since this presentation that happened 2 years ago, we have provided one webinar opportunity for staff to learn more about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And currently 7 of our park staff receive bilingual pay. And last winter, the interpretive program hired a bilingual intern with the financial support of the Parks Foundation. But this is still a work in progress. We always have more work to go. So earlier this year, I was selected as one of 16 county employees from 13 departments to represent the county as part of a core equity team. And this team has been receiving training as part of the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, or GARE. These training sessions are put on by Race Forward, which is an organization that works in partnership with communities, organizations, and government to build strategies to advance racial justice in our policies, institutions, and culture. GARE is a national network of government working to achieve racial equity and advance opportunities for all. And this network consists of over 210 members. The GARE training sessions, which just wrapped up today with our graduation just before this commission meeting, covered many topics, including racial equity training curriculum, training us to then train others in this curriculum, teaching us a racial equity tool to use in policy programs and budget decisions, and working towards creating a racial equity action plan. Other local government agencies that were participating in our cohort were Bay Area Rapid Transit, or BART, City of Hayward, City of San Jose, and the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority. As part of this core equity team, I met members of other county departments, including county health and county libraries, whose departments both have an equity team made up of department staff. I'm also a member of the Santa Cruz Mountains Stewardship Network Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, it's a mouthful, in which we meet every other month to discuss how each of our departments is progressing in the areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Through the network, I also discovered that Peninsula Open Space Trust, or POST, Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space, and the San Mateo Resource Conservation District all have equity teams that are made up of department staff. These teams work together to create recommendations for their departments regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion improvements for both external and internal practices. In speaking with these fellow county employees and local open space agencies and partners, it has inspired me to create a proposal for our department to consider creating a parks equity team. So I'll get into the timeline later, but I created a proposal for our management, and we reviewed it together in October, and it followed these, the structure, pardon my cat. The San Mateo County Parks Equity Team will be a standing committee that will meet on a quarterly basis over Zoom for the time being. And the team will consist of at least one staff person from each park district and one staff person from the natural resources team, interpretive team, office staff, and management, with a total of 11 staff for the committee. I would serve as the leader of the committee to start, but I would love to have somebody else take over the lead as we get going and as they get comfortable. As a team, we would make recommendations for the department by group consensus, and these recommendations would be presented to the director, superintendent, natural resource manager, and financial services officer for final decision before they are included in our department's policies. Prior to the formation of the team, the department will be issuing a department-wide equity survey to determine a baseline assessment of our park staff's current understanding of equity and how it relates to their work, and their current feelings regarding the department's effort in regards to equity. This survey will be anonymous and will allow the department to understand what areas to focus on moving forward. And even though this is a baseline survey, we'd like to repeat it on a regular basis so that we can determine how we're progressing in both our staff's understanding of equity and also our staff's assessment of our department's progress in regards to equity. So this is kind of a list of goals that I would like for our team, but the intent of this Parks Equity team is to really collaboratively discuss and agree upon the work moving forward, since everyone comes at the work with a different perspective, and I'm only one person. So, however, since the team has not been established, these are some of the things that I think that we could work on. Some of the first tasks would be to agree upon a mission statement for our committee and to develop a committee work plan with goals and strategies for each year using a logic model. Some topics and goals that we could consider looking at would be to review our internal policies with an equity lens, decide upon equity trainings for our department staff, develop a formal equity statement for the department, create equity action plans for each district, program, division within the department, and evaluate existing programs and projects with an equity lens. The timeline for the formation of this team, this is the timeline. I created the proposal and presented it to Parks Management in October of this year, and we're aiming to get the equity survey out to staff during this month, and we'll give staff about a month to complete it. After the survey is completed, we will inquire in each district and program and division for volunteers from the staff from each of those districts, programs, and divisions to be a representative for this team. We would like to assemble the team for our first meeting in March. And at this first meeting, we would like to begin work on that mission statement and a work plan. So I appreciate your time and I thank you all for listening to my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Catherine. You're just an amazing one-woman show, I have to say. I just have one quick comment for you. I'm involved in similar, not as in a leadership role like you, but as a participant in racial equity planning up in my day job. And just to note on the survey design, one concern that folks have raised is, like though the surveys may be anonymous, depending on what other like affiliative information you ask for, like if it's division or program, or if you ask any demographic information, like people may feel identified. So just something to think about how you design the information processing so that people feel comfortable answering candidly.
Thank you. Yeah, I was speaking with our HR and that was something of concern for them too. So we're going to take out those components of the survey.
It's a tricky walk between like you want to know so you can be targeted, but then in your response, but then sometimes it can be self-defeating. And I'll just say I'm also like just very happy to see, like knowing, I mean, I've only been on the commission for a year, but I see how you're affiliated with so many good things that the department does. And I'm just very happy to see that you had this leadership building opportunity with all the regional partners and networking and everything. I think that really strengthens our department and all of our efforts. I'm just very glad to see that. Questions from other commissioners on this? Let's see, I'll go down the line. Commissioner Manna?
Just thank you to our guests. Thanks for really thinking this out. This probably took a long time to really put together, and we're definitely looking forward to hopefully a better year of 2021. And we had a lot of things planned in 2020, and we had a great chair with Commissioner Heather Green, and hopefully she continues on for the upcoming year. And just, thank you for the project that you came up with, and hopefully we can run with it for the following year.
I'm muted. Thank you. Commissioner Okello, any comments for Catherine?
Catherine, I think you're laying down an exceptional foundation, for the work that we need to do around equity. I think, the fact that it's needed there's absolutely no doubt, but I think it is a very challenging task, and I admire, the steps that you have taken, echoing Commissioner Green's comments, partnering with other entities within the county, to lay a really solid framework, to get to accomplish, equity and cultural diversity, not only within this organization, but, certainly throughout the entire county. And so any help that we can provide to you in terms of helping you, move this, I think I'll be speaking on behalf of the commission to say that we're willing to do whatever it takes, to advance your goals on this. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Echo that. And I guess that raises, I mean, if it's helpful to have, I mean, we've done liaisons in the past to various efforts. So if you think it would be beneficial to have commission representation on the team that you're building in whatever role would be useful, that would be a possibility to consider. Commissioner Miralles, any comments?
Yeah, just thank you very much, Catherine, for taking this forward and let us know what we could do to help.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, public comments on this item, 7.2, the Parks Equity Committee. I remember you can raise your hand or press *9 if you're calling in.
I don't see anybody hands raised now. I don't know if you want to wait a few seconds and see.
Just pause here, take a breath. Here, it's supposed to be good for you to do that. All right,
Yeah.
Still nothing?
Nothing.
All right, thank you. Public comments on this item is closed then. Item 7.3, action item to accept the San Mateo County Parks Department's fiscal year, fiscal year 21-22 and 22-23 budget priorities. I've been waiting since I started. I'm so excited. Thank you for calendaring this.
It's a good way to end. It's a good way to end the year. Janet, can you put the PowerPoint up, please?
Yeah, hold on just a second.
Thank you so much.
I'm this cheerful about budget in my day job too. Everybody thinks I'm very strange.
It just means more pressure for me to put a good presentation on then. All right.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most important policy document we've got.
This is true.
Can you still see your slides?
Yeah.
All right. All right, let's try this again. How about now?
Perfect. We're ready to go.
Okay.
So today, the structure of the presentation is going to be, we'll talk about an overview of a 2-year cycle, given that not every entity does one. And then we'll talk about budget priorities, timelines, and then I'll take some questions if anyone has any. Janet, next slide, please. So overview of a 2-year cycle. So identify goals, and this is something that we do on a regular basis when we're working with our partners, when we're having commission meetings, when I'm engaging with the board of supervisors or the county manager. We're identifying the goals that we as an organization should be accomplishing. And then we go in, and that leads into our planning phase. And what the planning phase really is we're meeting with the rangers in the field, and we're understanding what's the condition of our infrastructure. We're meeting with Catherine and understanding what type of programming do we want to be doing. We're meeting with Hannah and the Natural Resource Management team and understanding what type of projects we want to be doing. And then we get to the goals and priority setting, which is really what we're going to talk about today, which is where we really lock in what is our vision over the next 2 years. Once we do that, we go through our process with the board of supervisors where they're going to allocate our funds and they'll adopt the budget, and then we implement the projects, we deliver the services. And then with the 2-year budget cycle, the way it works, that second year is really focused on performance measure and evaluation. So how do we take the data we've collected in that first year and how do we improve our performance and how do we enhance the services that we're providing? And so it's just this cycle. And Rolando, the department's fiscal and admin services manager, and his team deserve all the credit because they are literally always in this budget mode and it never ends. And they do an amazing job making sure that the staff has the resources they need and that we're being responsible with the funds that we have. So I do want to make sure they get acknowledgement and credit for that. Janet, next slide, please. So this is a diagram that the commission has seen several times from me in the past, and it's really how we set everything. And there are three core services or functions that we provide. It's our visitor services, our infrastructure and facilities, and our natural resource management. That's how you would sum up everything that we're doing, and that's how you sum up how we meet our obligation and our mission statement, how we provide the best services to the public that we can provide. So this is how I've outlined our priorities, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here. Janet, the next slide, please. Visitor services. So when we talk about budget priorities, during the first part of our next fiscal year, so essentially July to December of 2021, I am anticipating that we're still going to be operating in some modified form due to COVID-19. So what we need to do is make sure we have the necessary park aides on staff and that we're putting the right resources aside to make sure that we can clean our parks, that we can do our garbage and recycling runs, that we can clean our playgrounds, our restrooms, keep them restocked, making sure that our parks are healthy and not covered in garbage. And that's something that we really need to allocate a lot of staff resources to during COVID, because we're seeing a increase in users and there's an increase in services that come with that. The other thing we're looking forward to doing in our next fiscal year is getting our interpretive program back up and running. And Catherine, and what I mean by that, I think it's important to note, Catherine has done an amazing job taking our interpretive program and turning it virtual. And there are some things that she created and started because of COVID that we're actually going to continue when COVID is all said and done and behind us. We're going to continue to do some of these really cool virtual ideas. And in fact, she came to me the other day with another one. And so once again, Catherine is just pushing the limits, and we're excited to get her back out and to doing in-person events when they're safe to do so. And we are going to monitor trends and we're going to follow all necessary guidelines to keep our staff and our visitors safe. But we're excited that in next fiscal year, we're going to get that going again. And so we're talking take a hikes, movies in the parks, junior ranger events, all of those. Also next fiscal year, we're hopefully going to be wrapping up the 5-year interpretive plan. So Catherine's going to be getting that going in early 2021. And our hope is that at the beginning of next fiscal year, they'll be wrapping up. And what that's going to do is give us a whole new menu of options for interpretive programming that best meets the needs of the community. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is that interpretive program is going to have an equity lens to it. And so making sure that we're providing services for all members of the community. And you just heard the presentation from Catherine, as you can undoubtedly take from that. She has her fingers on the pulse of this better than anyone I know. And so having her also lead that interpretive program is going to be a critical component for us. And then we also want to make sure that our parks are being accessible. So we're always looking at how do we conduct projects that make our parks more accessible to those with accessibility challenges. And so whether that is making sure our picnic sites are ADA compliant or our playgrounds are ADA compliant, right? We need to be looking at that. And in the next fiscal year, the big one that's going to be going on is the flood park playground. And then the last thing that's not pictured here, but that is equally important to visitor services are the uses that we're allowing in our parks. So next fiscal year, we will have 2 new uses going on. That's off-leash dog recreation, and that's the pump track or mountain biking in general. And so we're really gonna have to evaluate that and see if there's a way that we can expand that. There's, one of the things we need to always look at is trends and desires in recreation evolve over time. And so how are we making sure that our parks are providing those the services or access to those trends and those new things that people want to do. So that's something that we're always looking at and making sure that we're evaluating. Next slide, please. Oh, and actually, I'm sorry, I don't know why I said Catherine, Janet, but if we can stay on visitor services, one other thing I wanted to point out is we are also going to make sure that we're setting aside the right funds so that the interpretive program can kick off these services, right? So, I mean, that's what we need to be doing when we're looking at this is we identify what we want to be doing and how do we set aside those funds to make sure that we can fund those initiatives. Janet, next slide, please. Infrastructure and facilities. Has a lot of aging infrastructure and facilities and many that are obsolete and just need to be completely replaced. And keeping in line with how we completed the Memorial Park wastewater collection system project, we're also looking to fund large-scale infrastructure upgrades and assessments in other parks. So a couple examples is the replacement of the Walnut Bridge at San Pedro Valley. We're going to be replacing the Homestead Bridge at Memorial Park. We're going to be upgrading the water distribution system at Huddard Park, and we're going to be constructing new shade structures at Coyote Point. One of the other things that we're going to be doing is setting ourselves up to do future bigger projects. So we're going to be conducting assessments of the wastewater collection system or the sewer system at Coyote and the water distribution system at Coyote. And we want to understand what is the condition of those assets or those facilities in our park, and how do we do a comprehensive upgrade if necessary to make sure that our systems are not breaking, we're not constantly spending time spot repairing. There's also our restrooms are opening and functioning. We talked earlier about opportunity costs, and we lose opportunity costs when our staff is having to spend a lot of time because infrastructure is always breaking. So we can do a large upgrade project. Staff is no longer having to do spot repairs, but instead they're able to do direct visitor services. They're able to do fuel reduction. And so that's why it's really important that we assess our utilities and our infrastructure to do large scale upgrades as necessary. And then next fiscal with the reimagined complete overhaul, we'll have the Tunitas Creek Beach design and permitting phase going on. And we'll be hopefully wrapping up the Eastern Promenade project at Coyote Point. So 3 large scale projects that are going to change the shape and the face of those parks. And so just so you know, kind of what we see going on here is, the bridge up top is something that needs to be replaced. And so you can imagine how much time and resources it takes to replace that bridge. You can, on that photo that's right above the word facilities, that's one of our fire roads. And it's critical that we keep these properly rocked, that we're keeping them the right width, that we're brushing vegetation off of them. And the reason I bring this up is because we like to spend a lot of time talking about the big projects, the Tunitas, the Memorial Park, the Eastern Promenade projects, but there's a lot of time and dedication and resources that goes into just the critical maintenance of maintaining our trails, of brushing our trails, of handling hazard trees, replacing bridges. So, for us, what we want to start doing is large scale projects so that we're spending less time doing some of those and more time fuel reduction and the visitor services. But now I do just want to take a quick moment also to acknowledge that, this is the work that the Rangers do day in, day out, whether it's hot, whether it's raining, they are out there working every day. And when you go into San Mateo County Park and you have a great experience and you are amazed at what you're seeing and you're going through, it's the work of the Rangers that makes that available and makes that a possibility. And really just so proud of what they do on a day-to-day basis. And next slide, please. And then our natural resource management. We also are fortunate to have an amazing natural resource management team. And over the next 2-year budget, They're going to oversee some of the largest projects and initiatives the department has undertaken. We will be working with the Resource Conservation District to do 415 acres worth of forest health projects. So really looking at, in Huddard and Wonderlook, really looking at things like oak death and how are we going to remove those trees that are not just threats to people using our trails, but they're also a threat to the trees nearby them. And how are we going to improve the ecological value? And that's going to take a lot of money, but it's also going to take just a lot of staff resources and time. They've also been tasked with leading the wildfire fuel management program, which we discussed earlier. And so those two are two of the biggest initiatives and projects that we're working on. Our natural resource management team, though, is also responsible for invasive species control. So Jabata grass throughout District 4 and Slender Falls broom at Wonderlick, making sure that we're retreating eucalyptus trees, but also making sure that we're going through the proper surveying for rare, threatened, and endangered species, both plant and wildlife. So they are working typically on a day-to-day basis, making sure that we're preserving and restoring the sensitive habitat, that we are keeping track of how our parks are serving the wildlife, and making sure that we're also on a day-to-day basis managing our parks in a way that limits our impact on the wildlife. So natural resource management is going to be very busy with fuel reduction, very busy with forest health, very busy at monitoring Pescadero Creek County Park and how that park recovers from the fire. And so we're making sure that they have the appropriate budget resources, have staff and contractors on hand to be on site and to be monitoring and measuring those impacts. And so that's what our natural resource management team is going to be doing. Slide, please. So this is just a rough outline of what the schedule looks like. So the big dates to take note is going to be that February 9th date, where we're really going to have a better understanding of the county budget and Measure K priorities and plans. So we don't have that information yet, but that's obviously going to really impact how much of this work we can do. And obviously the second date is going to be those June hearings in 2021, where the board will eventually adopt the recommended budget. So given where we are in the fiscal year, we don't actually have enough information for me to give you more concrete projects and initiatives. I tried to lay out for you all what projects we know we want to do. I tried to lay out how we want to accomplish it and how we want to manage the parks going forward. But with regards to how much Measure K funding we're going to get, with regards to how much fuel reduction funds we're going to have, how many large capital projects we're going to be able to do, those are all things that I just don't have enough information from the budget office at this time to answer. Oh, sorry. And next slide, please. And then with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Very good. Thank you. Can you back up one slide, actually, please? So thank you. So, okay, so you get on February 9th is when you get your like target for the budget. Not that it's so late. Okay.
Is Rolando on right now? He is not.
I'm
Oh, he
here.
is. Yeah.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm having issues with my internet connection. I apologize. So on February 9th is when the board will actually, approve the county manager's plan and priorities for the upcoming budget cycle, including the Measure K allocation. So there will be discussions beforehand, but the board will actually approve, and that kind of gives us the green light to proceed in finalizing our own budget internally.
When do the county manager's recommendations come out?
That would probably, it could be up to that point, or a meeting beforehand. I don't know that at this time. We will be receiving, by we, I mean the Parks Department will be receiving what are called net county cost targets, which is simply the ongoing contributions we receive from the county. And that's really related to the number of positions that we have. So we will be receiving that probably within the next 2 weeks. That's the first step, but that's mainly geared towards positions. And then, as I mentioned, more concrete budget and Measure K priorities will be in February. So that the county manager could probably present it that day, and the board will either decide to approve or hold another meeting to decide on any other changes.
Got it. And do you have like estimated line item costs for the various priorities that we heard about today?
So some we do, but not all.
I guess what it seems like would be appropriate role for commission would be to understand, I mean, in my life, we call them budget proposals, but like kind of those non-position, well, there may be position ones in more flush times, but I'm assuming you're not seeking additional positions, although correct me if I'm wrong.
We are.
But like, sorry, go ahead.
We are not.
Yeah, I mean, understand that that's not necessarily feasible given the climate, but like all those non-position like ambitions or proposals or whatever you call them. I mean, it would be nice to see those either as like a follow-up handout related to this item or in a future presentation, because I mean, like what I think is of interest is like, these are all noble things and they all are great. And in the pyramid that you have the 3 parts and they're equal size. And you don't see like what smaller triangles make up the bigger triangle. And so, understanding that what we will be able to do on top of our regular staffing will fall largely to contracts, projects, like whatever other, outside of the org chart world we can find. It would be nice to see kind of like what the department likes to do. If you have a prioritization within, if they're in 3 areas that are all priorities, but like, what's prioritized, or just even just documenting them. And then when the budget comes, when you do put together the budget, we can see what's getting funded and also what's being deferred. Because I think that that's a helpful tool for us to, every couple of months meetings, like just keeping track of the things we wish we could do seems important too. So that's a request, and I'm open to what form that comes in, but I do think documenting those things would be helpful and appropriate.
Yeah, Commissioner. So one of the things the department's doing this year is each district is going to be responsible for developing its own 2-year work plan, which will have the specific projects that are going to be funded, what the estimated project cost is, and some of the details that you're talking about. So right now, the districts are putting those work plans together, and what will happen is and that work plan is really a wish list. And then as we get more information from the county manager's office and we have a better understanding of how much we're going to be receiving, then we look at the wish list and we start paring it down to how those work plans will total reality of what we get. And so we're working on those work plans right now, and I'd be happy to have those presented to the commission in final form, which would be once we know how much we're getting, what projects for each district will be funded.
Thank you. I mean, to me, that really seems more like that one more level of detail seems more like what the agenda item's title is, which is to say those are priorities. Like what we've heard are the 3 pillars of the department and its work. But like if our action today was to accept the department's fiscal budget priorities, I don't know how one year would differ from another unless you like fundamentally change the structure of the department. Like not in a bad way, I understand that's where we are right now, and you need more information to actually articulate priorities, but not yet. But I think that we have some more to hear before we actually take action. So at this point, I'm going to pause and see if other commissioners have questions, and then can come around for a motion. So Commissioner O'Kello, any questions?
Oh, there I am. Not a question, but a comment. Actually, 2 comments. I like the idea that, you know, that the districts are gonna each develop a budget. And in each district, we're gonna be clear as to what their priorities are in terms of projects and so on and so forth. So probably, you know, having the commission, you know, get a preview of what they initially present. So we just don't get what is finally approved. So we get a sense as to, you know, at the district level, what are people thinking about as to what are the most important things. And attaching dollar figures to them, knowing that, you know, they probably will not get all the dollars when the allocation finally happens, but it will sort of give us a sense of what the individual district plans are and the budget implications of those plans. And then secondly, I'd like to suggest something, Director Calderon. When I think of the word visitor, I think of somebody that comes and visits you and then leaves. And they may or may not come back. But in the situation that we are in the profession that we are in, you know, people that visit our parks are really not visitors. What they're really stakeholders. And I think if we start calling them stakeholders, there's gonna be a change of perspective in terms of how we relate to them. And I say this for this reason, and this is a question to Rolando. Measure K was approved by voters. When is Measure K funding coming to an end? And at what point between now and then is the effort going to be initiated, to renew it? And so if we know that the visitors, quote unquote, who come to our park are really stakeholders, because these are the taxpayers, these are the people that are going to be convinced, to vote again for Measure K. And let's not consider them as visitors. They are actually stakeholders, just like our staff are. They are stakeholders, and we should relate them to them in such a way that when the time comes when Measure K has to be renewed, they vote positively and they're supportive of what the department does. That concludes my comments.
Yeah, Commissioner, I know you had asked about Measure K. So Measure A was passed, I believe, in 2012, and then was later renewed as Measure K. I believe that is good until 2042. 2043.
Oh, we got plenty of time.
It'll be here before we know it.
Yeah.
If 2020 ever ends. Commissioner Mirrlees, any questions for Nicholas?
No, yeah, it's great. I look forward to hearing more as it gets more fleshed out.
Okay. And Commissioner Manna? I think you're on mute now. Let's see. Maybe we lost Sam for a little bit here, but we still have 3. And Sam, if you're there, come on back anytime. I'd like to continue this item. I think, Craig, that's the right thing to do, right? If I want to see it on another agenda and not vote today. Oh, should we take public comment first before I make a motion?
Yeah,
Oh, there's
comment.
Okay, cool. Oh, I saw Sam come back. Sam, do you have any questions? Questions? No. Gonna take that as a no.
He's not getting through. I think he's trying.
In the year that we've had, hold on.
There he is.
Through a little. In the year that we've had, I heard.
In the year, sorry, I had to break away here. In the year that we've had, I've got to say, Director Calderon has done his, what he's asked to do and what he's performed to do, and the staff members that he thanks, it goes unnoticed. And dealing with this pandemic, I thought we'd never, get through a year, and what happened when we met at the captain's house in February to where we are now is just remarkable. And, hopefully we can rekindle. Let's say not those might not be the choice of words, but let's say we may rekindle in the month of February and all see each other because it's been nearly 1 year.
Hopefully the health officer is
So
with you.
I applaud you. I applaud you. I miss seeing you guys. I miss going to the in-person meetings and just somehow this Zoom stuff is hopefully coming to an end. Maybe February's, 3 months is a good time to hopefully, tackle this big beast that's ahead of us. And who knows if we got another wave come January. So hopefully we can meet and hopefully, we can get back on track of what was once a wonderful thing, and we can get back to showing our community how important parks are. And to echo what Commissioner O'Kelly said, what a stake we have in the community, and what everyone is a pillar here. And just pat yourselves on the back, man. And happy holidays. That's all I have.
Thank you. We'll check for public comment now as we are getting on 6 o'clock. Remember to raise your hand or press *9 if you're calling in. Any public comment, Jenna?
I do not see any comments for item 7.3.
Take one quick breath just to give people time to indicate their interest. Nothing still? Nothing still. Okay. Public comment.
Sorry, go on.
I was gonna say public comments is now closed.
Actually, sorry, before you do that, there she goes again. Carla and Young raised her hand right before you closed it. So if you want to go ahead and call on her.
Yes, definitely. Reopen public comment for sure.
Perfect.
And
hold on just a second while I pull up my timer. If I can find my
timer. I just wanted to say that your agenda doesn't have Nicholas's email address on it. So I don't think he has mine, and I still wanted to get in touch with him. So in the future, maybe you could put it on there.
Sid, I have it.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I think that's all for public comment. We don't have any more hands raised.
Cool. Thank you very much. So I'll close public comment on that item. I'd like, and Craig, get ready. I'd like to make a motion here, I guess, to continue the item, or do I need to make a motion to continue the item? I'd like to hear this back again when there is that level of detail about what the department intends to prioritize for projects, contracts, et cetera, by division, as Dr. Calderon mentioned, and as Commissioner O'Kelly mentioned, before it is, like fully baked and kind of too late to adjust.
I think you do need to take a motion.
Okay.
So that the rest of your commissioners agree that that's what they would like to do.
Okay, great. So I would like to move to continue this item to the call of the chair, to be able to hear it again with a little further detail in draft form. Do I have a second?
Could I ask a question first before I second?
Sure.
Is there any pressing reason that we need to vote on this before continuing it? Why can we not continue it? Melissa, do you need something from us from this meeting?
This is oh, sorry. My understanding is no, that this is an action item at the discretion of the commission, but Nicholas or Craig, please correct me if I'm wrong.
I'll defer to Craig with the legal, and then I'll bring up a logistical.
I guess my only point is that if you move to continue this and you were not to get a second, somebody else could then make a motion to accept right now. And so this action is still here. And so that's the thinking if you want to bring this back at a future meeting.
Yep, sounds fine. Okay. And Nicholas, is there a reason to accept or not decisively today?
I just want to be clear. This will have to occur at a special meeting then, because the Board of Supervisors will finalize budget and Measure K priorities and plans on February 9th, which is the week after your February meeting, and until April. At that point, everything will have to be more set in stone at that point.
Okay.
Couldn't we vote on this in February then? Because
at a February special meeting.
January. I thought we have a special meeting in January.
you'll have to also have a special meeting in February or March if you want to hear this item after so the Board of Supervisors will finalize the budget and Measure K priorities on February 9th. Your regularly scheduled commission meeting, if you adopt the next item as it's currently proposed, is February 4th. Therefore, I won't have enough information at that point in time to know what the board has approved for allocation for priorities and plans. And I'm not going to have enough, I may not have enough information in time for by February 4th to be able to give the level of detail you're looking for. So if we wait until April, if we wait until your April meeting, at that point, we may have already started to have to submit documents to the county manager's office, is what I'm saying.
I guess what I'm not understanding, I don't know if anyone else shares this confusion, is the priorities are the priorities regardless of the bottom line, right? So especially when you break them by division, and so why do you need the bottom line from the county in order to be able to articulate priorities?
Well, so, okay, so I hear what you're saying. You're saying throw everything in the kitchen sink in the work plan and then, so.
Well, I guess I would like to see, you know, kind of, no, not that. Rather, what are the things that, in your opinion, are top tier, given some reasonable estimation of like what you think is going to come from the county? What will be kind of your top tier projects that you will try to do no matter what? What are your, you know, really want to do them, will, you know, expect to be able to do them, may need to shave one or two of them if the budget comes in lower, and then like what are your nice to haves?
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
And we can do that just with the understanding that if that's presented at the February meeting, whatever the Board of Supervisors does the next week could theoretically change the conversation we had, and the commission would not be informed of it until it's too late, because documents will at that point will have started to be submitted to the board. Does that make sense?
Yes, understand. I think that I'm comfortable with that, and then we can see what that looks like at our regularly scheduled February meeting. And then if we feel the need to have a follow-up in the week of the board's decision, we can add a special meeting at that time, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Okay, cool. So that is the intent of my motion for continuation will be
Through
that
the
we
chair,
hear
could I ask a question?
Yes, please. Thank you.
So the date for the special meeting in January has not been set as of yet.
Correct.
And so can we set that date later on in the month of January to give you time to get all the district budgets so that we have something and really have a discussion in January? Because I think the earlier we have the discussion, the better, I think.
So all I'd say is moving the timeline forward is going to make it more abstract.
Yeah.
If you
Okay,
want,
so February 4th.
If you want more,
could we do our special meeting in March instead of January, or will that slow down the projects you intended to bring?
that will significantly slow down the two projects.
Okay. All right. So I think our regular February meeting is the best bet to get, you know, as good information as you have at that time, understanding that you may not be able to do everything that you hope to do based on what the county tells you, but you would still, it's priorities, right? That to me, that's like desire. So the motion on the floor is to continue this item to our February meeting to hear further refined detail on the priorities the department is working on. Do I have a second?
I think I hear a second from Commissioner Merlis.
Shake your head up, nod your head if you meant to say yes.
Yes.
It didn't come through now.
All right, can I do a roll call?
Sounds good.
Commissioner Merlis?
The sound is not coming through, so maybe put a thumbs up if you mean to say aye.
Commissioner Otello? Commissioner Mena? Commissioner Mena? I don't hear him.
I don't hear hear me there? I'm gonna go to me and then we'll have them I will agree with my own motion.
Okay, Chair Green.
Aye.
Thank
So
you.
that's 3. Sam, if you meant to say aye, please communicate that somehow. Okay, so that motion carries, and so we continue this item to February without action today. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for the presentation. You know, it's very informative, and I understand that things come into focus over the course of the year, so I look forward to hearing those division by division and district by district ideas. Moving on to item 7.4, I think we want to try to squeeze this in, though we're a little bit over time. Adopting the resolution establishing the Parks and Rec Commission regular meeting schedule for calendar year 2021. We have in our packets, oh, why are you doing that? We have in our packets the proposed calendar. I'm just scrolling down. I mean, I can read these out. I see dates where we are, keeping the same schedule, first Thursday every other month beginning in February. Any comments you want to offer on this?
No, you know, for 2020, there was an effort to try and hold meetings in the parks, and obviously that wasn't able to be done. My recommendation is that we try to do that again, with the understanding that at the beginning it's not going to be feasible, but as soon as we're able to transition to in-person meetings, then at least by adopting this, we'll be able to jump right in.
That sounds good to me. Do we want to, at this time, though, add the January special meeting? Is that something we would do separately?
Yeah, I think this is the regular scheduled meeting, so I don't.
Okay.
As a special meeting, I think I'll defer to Craig though, in case he thinks something else.
No, your bylaws require you to set your regular meeting schedule by
Okay.
resolution, so that's you can still call a special meeting for January.
Sounds fine. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions on this item? No public comment on this item. Janet, do we have anyone?
I do not see any hands raised for this item, no.
Commissioner O'Kello, did you have a comment or question on this item?
You know, I do need to go to another meeting.
Yes, let's.
I'm so pressed for time, so.
Yes, thank you. All right, so I think we are ready to have a motion to accept the regular calendar as published with the first Thursday of every other month beginning in February cadence.
I will so move.
Motion to approve from Commissioner O'Kello, second from Sam. Roll call from Janet.
Commissioner Mariles?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Kello?
Yes.
Commissioner Mena?
Yes.
Chair Green?
Yes, look how fast we are. Okay, we got through that one. Commissioner O'Kello, if you have to jump off, that is our last action item. Thank you so much for joining and for your time as always.
It's nice to see you all.
Likewise.
2021.
Yeah.
Oh, nice haircut.
All right, so we have a couple more items on our agenda, but we are already running long, and they are just commissioner updates, which, I know that my term as chair is coming to a close, and I think Neil will be next up. So I think we can work together on just making sure that the work plan is up to date for the coming year. The bulk of what we had in there, I think we accomplished in so far as hearing, on the subjects that we had laid out as priorities for ourselves, and with the new year, it'll be time to reset. So, perhaps on the February or April, if we don't have time agenda, we can just bring that up to update on that. Any other commissioners want to make remarks on agenda item 8? Sorry, I didn't call agenda item 8. That was agenda item 8, commissioners' reports. Does anybody have any comments on the work plan? No. Seeing none. Any public comments on this item?
Seeing none.
All right. Take a second, but public comment is closed on this item, and no vote needed. Moving on, items for future agenda. Item 9. Can we hear, remind me, how do we set the special meeting?
Craig, I think we just need to set a date and a time.
Yeah, you're just gonna be able to call that. You'll be able to do, you don't need to do that through this meeting.
Oh, okay, but we just need to notice in time. Okay, so we don't need to do that.
Yeah.
I see here, items for the future agenda, you know, the commission officers handoff to Tunitas Creek, as you had mentioned, and just for the public benefit, sounds like we will do that at a special meeting even earlier than our February meeting. So please keep an eye out for that if you are interested in that project in particular, and our education campaign. And we heard today that we'd be continuing the budget priorities item. Any other items folks want to log for a future agenda? Not seeing none from my fellow commissioners. I'll just note, I know we had on here, maybe this is part of the education campaign, but we had talked about, you know, kind of like accessibility at the coast and making, you know, the coast as inviting and so on as possible. And I know that's a priority for our future chair. So I don't imagine we need to crowd our first meeting, but I would just want to register that as a future item.
Yeah, Chair, that's included in the education.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Any public comment on this item?
Seeing none.
Okay, we'll just give it one more second. None left. Okay, public comment is closed on item 9, and that brings us to item 10, adjournment. We adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Happy holidays.
Stay safe.
You too.
Take care. Bye.